podcast. What's it about?
Eastenders, isn't it?
All about Eastenders.
Oh, phew.
We are discussing episodes from the 17th to the 21st of September.
Now, before we go any further, because we need to deflate this big head of Ben's before it gets any bigger in this room. Ben had made a prediction last week, one of many of our predictions that we always make, and one which
you put enough theories out there.
We've put theories out there. That's the thing. If you put enough out there, one of them's gonna get caught. And
there's two this week, but carry on.
Well, two. Well, the one one is Carmel. And so we basically have to toot Ben's horn. He said, well, we won't say it just yet, but something Ben predicted
her exit storyline
would happen for Carmel is happening.
And when I said it, you said, "Oh, I'd like that." I
did, and
here we are.
No, I'm not so sure.
The writers are listening to us. The other one, I was talking about gunshot residue. I said how it wasn't realistic, and they haven't checked it.
That's true.
So,
and yet again, we won't spoil it until we talk about it.
Well, everyone's seen EastEnders anyway. Who's listening to this? Hopefully.
Well, yes, but maybe not.
That's true.
We do get a few people write in and say to us they weren't able to watch it, and I think there have been some problems with our American listeners with BritBox over there. So
yes.
Perhaps
this omnibus.
This is their omnibus. This is their catch up.
So yeah, obviously they're listening to me.
Well, if they wrote it in the space of a week. Unless they've got some kind of time travel machine, Doctor Who style, you never know.
Yeah, quick edit, it's fine.
Like they do with the dubbing.
Yeah, they dubbed it all in. So we are going to start off, because we've got a new character this week.
We have.
Which is fun. Horrible woman. So we're going to start talking about Hayley this week. She's got a storyline running of her ongoing pregnancy.
We should say two new characters this week. One we knew about. Well, two we knew about, but yes. But anyway, so which one's the horrible woman?
Can't wait to talk about her. Yeah, which one's the horrible one? Yes, so we had the storyline of Hayley, and obviously her mum makes an appearance this week.
She certainly does, and there's a lot of baby talk with Hayley this week.
There is.
So she's doing errands around the square, meeting up with Kim. I think there was a really nice moment on Tuesday when it was an episode with her and Kim kind of talking and learning off each other about.
Yeah, I like these scenes of Kim and Hayley because they're going to their classes in the
community centre for coincidence, because
and,
whenever there's something needs to be happening related to the square, the community centre will be running
yoga,
some kind of
dancing classes, and this time antenatal class, a knife box.
Well, that we know about the knife box. There was a long story about that a long month ago.
Ian's election for being councillor.
That was been forgotten.
Yeah. So yeah, all of that's going on. But I thought the scenes of them in the cafe it was nice because it was just a normal conversation between two normal people just talking about how they're both single mums and how motherhood changes them in their perception of things. Yeah,
it was a natural conversation, wasn't it? It seemed quite a natural chat between them, and it was really nice to see it.
Yeah, you so rarely get them anymore, where I don't know, not many people seem to have friends anymore. Like Sharon and Linda or Shirley and Jean. Like, you don't have people who are friends. So it's nice just to see those conversations every now and then.
Yeah, it's just nice.
Normal life.
It'd be nice if they also continue this between. Because Kim gave Hayley a real confidence boost as well. I mean, Hayley was starting again to feel a bit down on her luck and wasn't sure if she wanted the baby, but she's now gone too far and she can't really do much about it. And Kim put her mind at ease a little bit and told her, you sink or you swim, the baby always comes first. And this put her mother-like concerns to rest a little bit. And you could see that there was almost an evolve with Hayley when Kim and her had that conversation in the cafe.
It's such a unlikely friendship as well.
Yeah.
Because they're so polar opposites. Like, Kim likes the high life, doesn't she, and all the rich, extravagant things, and obviously Hayley is homeless, doesn't have any money and stuff. So it's like a pairing you never really thought of.
Kim became quite modest actually, because she said about her house is now for sale. She's living with her sister, with their dad Patrick, and
I'm not sure. Yeah, Dad. Let's just call him their dad.
But they call him her dad, and she kind of likened the fact that if you think about it, we're both in the same boat, although I maybe come from better beginnings. You've had a bit of a harder time to get to where you are. We are now in the same boat, and we both have to, think about the baby. They're more important.
She also mentioned the house was for sale again.
Yes.
Can we get a new family in there?
Or maybe someone else. That could be a poll of the week, perhaps.
What? Who's going to move into Vincent's?
Well, that was a poll of the week this week.
Right.
Stay listening. Stay listening to that one.
I have no idea. So yeah, that's exciting. Obviously, they were having their jokes outside the cafe where she was making Kim laugh, brightened her day, talking about how fat they were, no body shaming because they're pregnant. And then she got a bit of a shock when she saw this woman vaping.
Yes.
Across the market.
Because vaping's the cool thing to do nowadays, isn't it?
Yeah, posh, apparently.
It's the posh thing to do, that's right.
So yeah, apparently that's Hayley's mum, and she turns up at the doorstep
with
of
flowers.
the Slater house. Yeah, flowers
to congratulate Hayley for the pregnancy, and a note in the flowers. Beverly was her name.
Yes, and Kat obviously has never gotten on with her, apparently.
Well, we've known that there's two Slaters, isn't there? There's
common Slaters.
The common Slaters, and then the Slaters that we know and love, which to maybe some people would say
the common
Slaters too.
Not as common.
No.
So yeah, they had like a row on the doorstep, and Hayley sort of just stood back and listened, didn't she? She didn't really chime in much. She's blaming Jean.
Well, she thinks Jean was the one who got in touch with her mum. And when Jean insisted that she hadn't, Hayley then jumps to the conclusion that she must be up to something. She must be there for a reason. She doesn't just turn up all nice for any old person. So there must be something she's after.
Because the note said something like, "Can we start again or try again?" The note said to Hayley. So she goes out and meets her mum, who's on previously Arthur's bench, now Shaquille's bench. It seems they've passed the torch over to Shaquille.
Sharper.
It sounds rude.
A hill. I don't know.
Shaquille Fowler.
Oh, lovely. There we go. That's better.
Or
Arthur Concini.
Kazemi.
Cafowley.
Yeah. So they're sharing the bench in their memories now.
Cafowley's bench.
I'm not sure how long all that stuff's going to stay on Arthur's bench.
Cafowley's bench.
Because remember when the Taylors stole the bench and they like had all that stuff on it before? Then it got cleaned up. Yeah. So it seems to be like a self-cleaning bench. Well, no, maybe it's Arthur's spirit. Arthur and Pauline are still there.
Maybe it's Robbie's one and only job when he's sweeping round the square. He likes to clean the bench. But I hope they don't clean the bench. I would like it to naturally I think that is
naturally fade.
As is Cafowley's bench, as we've now renamed it. I think it should be forever remembered for both characters.
And Pauline and Arthur are still sitting on there in spirits, I imagine.
Well, she's probably collapsed in front of it.
Yeah, she's in. Yeah, spirits can move slightly. Although he's stuck at the allotment with Joyce now, isn't he?
Hayley's spirit.
They should make like an afterlife EastEnders. Hayley, Joyce and Arthur both died in the allotment. Well, her ashes are in the allotment, and he died in the allotment.
I mean,
so they could be having a little thing in the afterlife.
I mean, as ridiculous as an idea that is, don't forget that Pat did come back from the afterlife to talk to Peggy.
Yeah, she's in the Mitchell house. So
the ghosts of the square.
That's our new theory. Let's see if that comes true. So we learn quite a bit about Hayley's mum, about how much of a horrible, unloving person she is. We obviously get the idea that she's been an awful mum, but she wants to try and be a good gran. Yeah, she wants another chance. Which is normally the easier job. Like, people tend to enjoy being the grandparent more than they enjoy being a parent, because it's like you just have all the fun bits. Yeah, they don't have to discipline the kid. And then pass them on. So she offers to take her up the market to... Actually, she offers to go to town with her. No, does she? Yes. I thought because she was a bit cheap, she only said, like, the market. No, she actually says nothing too expensive, but not the market. Yeah, but she didn't... take her up the market. So she didn't take her up the market. And she says she wants to spoil her granddaughter, but she buys Hayley just a big T-shirt. Yes, a really bad T-shirt as well. It wasn't Mad Mum. Yeah, crazy. I'm a crazy mum. And then also buys her like a Guinness or a beer, a stout full of iron, good for her pregnant daughter. I don't think Hayley minds. Do you? Well, I mean, Hayley didn't drink it. She well, she rolled her eyes. Yeah, like Hayley does, rolls her eyes. Typical Bev. They keep showing Bev like on the phone, so it appears that she has a job. Yes, to begin with. Well, we know, she's working, but we don't know what she's working. And she keeps saying, "I'm on it." I'm. So you got the impression that she's working while she's with Hayley as well. So then the reveal comes out that she's a bit of a con artist, and she plays like a honey trap, and she's a bit like Big Mo. Yeah, kind of. They're not that dissimilar. Slaters are all the same. Yeah. And she basically works with pregnant women who want to
get money from the man who put the seed in her.
But she said she doesn't have to sleep with any of them. She said, I don't have to sleep with any of them, but I just take a photo of us together and then blackmail them. Basically.
And then blackmail them for the money.
So she
offers this service to Hayley, which doesn't go down too well.
Because she knows obviously it's a married man, so she thinks, right, lots of money to be had here. So she even like offers to phone the guy and arrange
she offers
the blackmail.
There and then. She's like, I'll phone him now and get it all sorted. You know, and so Hayley's a bit upset because then she realises that her mum's not there for her and to be with the child. She's there for more money. She's there for the money that she could potentially get from this blackmail scam.
Yeah, and they have like a really horrible argument in front of Billy. I don't know if I noticed slight spark between Bev and Billy behind the bar. Coupling for the future, possibly.
Oh.
So yeah, they have like a really horrible conversation where she basically tells Hayley she wishes she had an abortion. She tried quite a few times to have her aborted.
Yes.
And she says all these horrible things.
Really nasty.
And that maybe Hayley should also consider
getting
rid because she'll be an awful mum.
The apple doesn't fall too far from the tree, that old chestnut. You know, she kind of says, you know, you're not going to be any better than what I am, so don't try. Don't try to pretend that you will. You're going to be this
really
better mother. And this happens, this goes outside of the club as well. And while the stress of this screaming match between them happens... Hayley starts noticing that she's bleeding.
And like the mum doesn't even care. Like she blatantly sees as well, and she just gets in the cab and goes.
Really
also,
nasty.
Hayley shouted over the Duff Duff, which is very rare.
Oh yeah, she said, I need help."
Yeah, she kept her scream going.
Yeah,
right. So don't normally hear noise over a Duff Duff.
It's nice to have a change.
Yeah, a bit different.
Mix things up a bit.
So yeah, she's obviously in pain. Needs to go to the hospital.
But she doesn't go to the hospital. She instead spends the night at the allotments, on the bench of the allotments.
And Jean notices the next morning she's in pain. Jean is always the one that seems to notice this.
Well, she goes back home. She's sat on the bench, and Keanu is having a bit of a rest from the story that we'll get to a bit later on. And he kind of says, I would help you, but you don't really help yourself, so I don't think I really care enough anymore. So I suppose this is it. This is the breaking now of any potential between Hayley and Keanu.
He's busy, isn't he?
Yeah, I know he's busy. Well, he's got better things to do.
He has to keep patching himself up from all the incidences.
He does. He needs to get his stamina up, doesn't he? Lucozade and a Junior Disparol, and he'll be back on the market.
Yeah. So yeah, she does eventually go to the hospital after Jean basically makes her. She goes with her. Gets called in for her appointment, but she just sits in the toilets instead. Yeah,
she says, I'm sorry to waste your time, but I don't really need the appointment. Jean notices also that she's got that small bottle of vodka in her bag, so Jean's a bit concerned, unopened, but a bit concerned with what's been going on. Hayley's also asking her bump to kick, so she is worried that it's not there, but at the same time the confidence that she's lost from her mother by basically
really quickly
being horrible has sucked it out of her. And so I think this is when we started to see that Hayley's, again, not so sure whether she wants the baby, whether she wants to...
No, she just doesn't think she's going to be that good.
Yeah, and she gives the impression that she doesn't care if the baby had died, but at the same time she kind of doesn't want to know entirely because it may be devastating to her. So, but what's that theory? If you put a cat in a box, you wouldn't know if it's dead or alive. Schrager's cat, or anyway, something like that. So, in a way,
horrible.
Well, no, but in a way, to Hayley, she's
if you don't know, then
what you don't know won't hurt you. Yeah, so it's better for her.
Yeah.
Well, Jean can see that the confidence has been knocked out of Hayley. And she blames Hayley's mum for doing that. She works out that she was okay before Beverly had come back, and now all of a sudden she's got this kind of downbeat, negative attitude towards the pregnancy. So she asks Stacey to keep an eye on Hayley, which Julie she does not do, and then she goes
busy.
She is busy. She then goes out and meets up with Beverly at the tube station.
Yes, has to be in person. So Beverly comes all the way to Walford tube station for some reason. She has too much time on her hands. Yeah, they have a few words, and Bev kind of accuses Jean of putting on like an act. Like how she used to be a horrible mum. And quite a few people have said that, actually. I've noticed, like when Jean came back, everyone keeps saying, oh, has she forgotten how horrible she was to Stacey and things. So it's nice that they did mention that.
I mean, when Jean was indifferent towards Stacey and Sean, it was because it was a medical problem.
Yeah, and Bev says, like, oh, it must be nice for you just being on these pills in fairyland.
Yeah, so maybe Bev is not jealous, but thinks, well, I might have something similar, and I've never been diagnosed for it. It's a quick fix.
Yeah, but yeah, she sort of says, "Oh, this is like another chance for you to be a good mum and stuff." But again, she leaves it on quite a horrible note of not really wanting to try, does she?
She doesn't seem that concerned at
There's
all.
no money, so
yeah, the money's dried out. She doesn't. She's not going to get anything from it. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if Bev comes back at some point and tries to find another way of getting into Hayley's psyche. Obviously, Beverly has a way of intertwining herself into Hayley and finding a way of making Hayley almost bend to her needs. And it hasn't worked out this time. I mean, another thing to mention is that Hayley feels like once she's had this baby, all these people all the family, the Slaters, Jean,
they're going to be gone.
They're going to be gone.
Well, especially when they find out who the dad is.
Yes, exactly.
That's really playing on her mind.
Exactly.
As well.
And so I reckon Bev will find out that it's Alfie and then use it against...
Or blackmail him.
No, not blackmail. I don't think she'll blackmail Alfie. I think she'll start using it against Hayley.
Oh, right.
And start using it as in... A bit like what... the kind of Stuart Carter thing, basically saying he says to Halfways, like, they're not your real family, I'm your real family. She might do something similar and then continue to then blackmail the Slaters, blackmail Kat, and so if you don't want me to reveal the secret, you have
Sadly,
to give me...
they have no money.
So, well, I don't know. Blimmin' Martin seems to have a lot of money, and Stacey this week. They're splurging out this week. But eventually, happy ending is that Hayley she downs a bit of vodka. And like mother,
yeah, because she keeps saying to her, "If you kick, I won't drink it." And then obviously doesn't kick, so she guzzles a little bit.
Yeah,
and then it kicks. Wakes up.
That's all she needed. Like her mum, she just needed a bit of a I don't know, a morning after hair of the dog.
I mean, she's had quite a lot of alcohol through this pregnancy.
Little bits
before
and pieces.
She knew she was pregnant, she was on the tube that night. Remember, and she drank like 6 cans.
No, she didn't drink the 6 cans.
It
was that
girl
girl
got
she was
stolen,
talking to.
Yeah, but she did. She was drinking, but
no, I don't think she was drinking on the tube.
Oh, really?
She had drunk before. She had drunk vodka because that was the night when you had the big argument in the Vic, and she threw the drink on Kat. Then she went off to the tube, so she knew she was pregnant then, and I don't think she had drunk on the tube. But she did give them
before that.
When she gave the money to the girl on the tube to buy the pack of 6 beers. She came close to drinking the vodka that time, and she ended up tipping it down the sink. I mean,
so there's just been quite a few. Almost. But she did openly say to Kim in the cafe that all she wants is a glass of vodka and a fag. So, thinking of baby. Not long now, and she can have one.
So she'll probably do it in the hospital bed. Like, so she's had the baby's like, give me my fags, give me my vodka.
So for comments this week, I went on to Facebook to find a different pool of people to give us some comments and feedbacks. So we asked, what did everyone think of Hayley's mum? She's back.
What did they think?
So there's quite a lot of comments. So I'm not going to go through all of them because it's hundreds. Well, not hundreds, but quite a lot. So I'll read whichever ones I can. So Mary says, horrible woman. Suddenly I have newfound respect for Hayley. Oh. Claire says, trouble. That's what she thinks of her.
Trouble. Quite.
Joanne says, she's a nasty piece of work. Kathy says, she's just nasty, but I love Hayley.
Is that Kathy Bill?
No.
Nay Mitchell, nay whatever she was before that.
Dead. R.I.P. Sarah says, trollop.
Wow. That's quite a harsh... I always think trollop's quite a nasty thing to say to someone.
Shazan says, I'd like her to argue with Karen. It would be nice to see how feisty they'd be together. Well, I thought that when I saw Hayley's mum, I thought her and Karen could either be best friends or enemies.
Well, Kat and Karen started off as frenemies, and then they become a bit more closer.
Yeah.
I think...
Charlotte says, trouble, I can't see her getting on with anyone in Walford. Julie says she's a gobby woman, just like Kat.
Yes.
So...
Slater trait.
Yeah, part of a Slater. And there's loads of others. She's a snobby little cow. She needs a good smack for talking to Hayley like that. Disgraceful.
The way she spoke to Hayley was, honestly, it was really nasty.
And Mike says, we used to think Karen Taylor was bad in the beginning. We used to think Hayley was bad in the beginning too. But Hayley's mum is a cold-hearted bitch.
Wow.
You cow.
You cow. I mean...
I'm assuming we're allowed to say bitch on the show because they say it on EastEnders. So
yeah, I reckon it's a D grade swear.
You bitch, you cow is allowed.
I mean, if it's too much trouble, we'll find
Peggy
a way.
and Pat can do it. It's all good.
Well, maybe this should just be if we can only say it to each other if we slap one another. So So
I'll put my big earrings in.
Okay, good.
So yeah, that's what they thought of Hayley's mum. So that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean,
she's a nasty woman.
It was interesting, the one comment that said that Hayley and Karen, when they first were introduced, we didn't like them. So that's a good point.
And Keegan, like, there's quite a few that
they...
Once you find out a bit about why they're horrible, you tend to love them.
It rounded Hayley out a lot more, because it kind of made you understand why Hayley was so guarded and difficult to get on with.
Right, so we're moving on to the Carters and Stuart and his accusations.
Yes.
He's awake.
He's finally woken up.
His daughter's still hanging around. Whitney still looks guilty.
She does.
So yeah, quite a few things are going on. We saw the lovely Richie return towards the end of the week, which is always nice when Richie's back.
I know. Her fringe seems to get higher, though, every time we see her.
Yes.
It was like almost halfway up her head. I mean, it reminded me of when we did the fan fiction episode a couple of weeks ago. They said her eyebrows went all the way around her head.
I remember that, yeah.
Listen to that, guys.
Whitney raised her eyebrow to her forehead. And then Abby said something even worse, and it raised above her forehead.
Above her forehead. Imagine that.
Although we have one of our listeners writing some fan fiction for us now.
Oh, yes, we do.
So fingers crossed for a second edition.
Yay.
Right. So the Carters, well, they're all sort of waiting for Stuart to wake up, because at the end of last week he had that like thing where it looked like something bad was happening and all the nurses like surrounded him.
Yes.
And they're planning to wake him up.
Yep, he's out of his coma. They're getting him out of his coma. And pretty much the whole of Monday is kind of watching them coming in and out.
Halfway sort of says to Whitney that he doesn't actually like his brother and he wishes he was dead as well.
Yeah, which I
interesting.
Thought was a bit of a leap.
Can't make his mind up, can he?
No, because he was spending the last 2 weeks crying and saying how the other Carters have, deliberately wanted Stuart dead.
It's that thing that Eastenders do, though. It's like, because it's your family, no matter what they've done, you stick by them. So I guess it's kind of that sort of thing that they like to do in EastEnders.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought it was a bit like, oh, okay, halfway.
Yeah, you seem to have leapt
now
from another...
Now you wish he was dead all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So, no wonder Whitney got mixed messages when she shot him.
Well, I think your Whitney theory.
Well, we know who shot Stuart, apparently.
Well, we do, exactly. So your Whitney theory is maybe one of your black marks of the week.
I don't believe what Stuart is saying.
We'll see. So all the Carters are really hopeful that he wakes up. They want him to wake up so he can tell the truth to the police, and they can finally draw a line. As I say at these stories, they can finally draw a line of the whole thing and move on with their lives and carry on just doing what they're doing.
So
but it doesn't work out that way.
No, he wakes up and halfway's like, "Do you want to tell me who shot you, Stuart?"
Yeah.
He's like, yeah.
It's
like the first thing he does when he
But
wakes
then he
up.
grabs his shirt and pulls him towards him, doesn't he? And he's quite vicious with it as well. It's like he's been waiting the whole time he's been in this coma. He's been dreaming of this moment to happen.
Yeah, so he says, like, I don't know, he says, like, me.
Yeah,
and
he
then
says
can't quite get his words out. And then says, me mate Mick.
Yes.
My mate Mick, me mate Mick.
He says me, and then there's a long pause.
Because at the end of the episode,
Carter.
a bit later on when they arrest Mick and whatever, a bit later, and halfway goes, oh, actually, I remember now. He said me first. But I thought, he's just woken up from a coma. He hasn't talked in 2 weeks? So his throat's really dry. He's had all tubes in him. Maybe he was just trying to get his words out. He didn't actually say me. I don't think. I didn't see it like that at all.
I sometimes think you should just let your theories of Whitney lie. I think you should just forget it.
He said me, my mate Mick is what he said. So he was like trying to get his words out. I didn't
Sue's stumbling his words rather than admitting his own.
Yeah.
Shooting.
Did you think he said me? Like, why would he say me?
To be honest with you,
or is he just testing halfway and trying to annoy him?
Well, it could be that. But also, to be honest with you, I didn't actually hear him say me. All I heard him say was me old mate Mick Carter.
That's what I mean. But he said me old mate, like that. So it wasn't. He didn't actually go to halfway, smile at him and go, "It was me." I mean, it was Mick Carter. So I think halfway's jumping at conclusions,
clasping at straws, because halfway was desperately trying to get in touch with the Carters, wasn't he, to warn them that he's
run away,
to run away, because he's told the police that he thinks it's Mick. Well, he knows it's Mick Carter that shot him.
Yes, he's certain. And yeah, they're all sort of frantically. Linda's like, "We'll get a cottage somewhere and hide.
Tina says, maybe Phil knows somewhere abroad they can hide. And Shirley's like, he's lost his passport, you dozy cow.
And she said, do you think we'll be back by Christmas? Like, that's on top of Linda's mind, is Christmas.
But Mick mentions that too, because when he basically calms everyone down from their frantic packing, he then says, look, everyone, I'm not going to run away. It makes me look more guilty. He can't have that much evidence against me. He can't know that much information. And if we just play the game, play Stuart's game, Mick says we need to find the clues ourselves. We need to find him guilty.
Find him guilty before he's in prison for too long.
Too long. And he does say then, hopefully I'll be out by Christmas. So I'm presuming that we're getting a hint of how long. Yeah, alluding to how long this is going to happen. I did like also while Halfway was trying to phone Mick and Linda, that they were having a bit of afternoon delight. To the song of...
By scrubbing the walls in the cellar.
Well, I think there was more scrubbing going on. They were scrubbing not just the walls.
It's an odd job, scrubbing the walls.
They're getting rid of the mould.
Oh, right.
From the beer.
From all the dead bodies that have been in there.
Yeah,
for
probably.
The past few years.
All the blood.
All the particles.
Yeah.
So, we have that all going on. And then the police are then wanting to interview Stuart. Well, I'm quite impressed with this policeman this week. I wasn't very impressed with him the past few weeks, but he's not completely convinced about this.
No.
So I'm quite glad he's not as dumb as he looks. He's still questioning Stuart, and I don't think he really trusts him.
Well, no, he doesn't. And Stuart sees that too. So what he does while he's getting himself into a bit of a corner...
Yeah, because he keeps tripping up on things that he's saying, doesn't he? And not...
Well, he contradicts himself.
Yeah.
So he says one thing, and then he says another. And
Which does that allude to his split personality theory from a few months ago?
Well,
does he generally not really remember what...
Well, do you think he in his head actually thinks it's Mick Carter?
There's quite a few times this has happened where he it's like when he broke Linda's precious bowl, that he couldn't remember doing it, but then fixed it, and I don't know, there's a few things.
It's weird. There was that moment in the laundrette where he's talking to Tina, and he's kind of breaking down and falling on the floor and kind of crying, and then when Tina runs away, he just kind of looks back up again, stands up, and changes. Yeah.
So very odd. So he's getting all a bit mixed up with the police interview, and he told his daughter to stay in and listen.
He wanted his daughter to listen. I think this was his intention, was to get Zara on his side, because again, he noticed that Zara was beginning to not believe him too. So in our desperation to stop the interview quickly,
because what it was the video that they had of Linda. I don't think Stuart knew they told the police about that, because when they said, "Oh, we have a video
they didn't.
of you,"
the police had it. The police found it in the cloud.
Yeah. So that's what I think tipped Stuart over like that.
Yeah.
Ooh. And Zara was like, "Dad, you didn't do that, dude. That's disgusting." So yes.
But then to stop the interview with the police, he got the fork from the pudding cup and he tore out a couple of his stitches.
Yes.
Just so he started bleeding again. Yeah, he got some blood in his hand. But Zara noticed that he did that because Zara's been holding this cigarette the whole time.
Oh, she needs one.
Well, yeah, but I don't know if she's quit smoking or something, and so she's constantly thinking. But yeah, but she's just kind of stood there looking at this.
I think she was about to go for one, but he said, "Can you stay for the interview?" So she's like, "Okay."
Okay. Well, she dropped the cigarette.
She dropped the cigarette,
and next to it was the fork with the blood on it. So she knew that he had done that.
Yeah, and I mean, Linda has really messed things up this week, because if she didn't come and interrupt all this and do all these things, Zara was well on board to not believe her dad, wasn't she? And then Linda comes barging in and ruins it all and starts throwing all these things out and saying to Zara, "He's lying. You've got to help us."
I mean, if someone shouts in your face that what your father's saying is wrong, you're going to kind of incline to be more toward your father.
And it's like, oh.
Yeah,
she's messed up a lot now. The gun, did she not learn from messing around with the gun?
Exactly.
So yeah, Zara then decides that she'll give him an alibi and say that he was with her.
Of the afternoon.
Yes.
Well, on the afternoon of when Mick visited, and where Mick said that he was having a fight with Stuart.
So I don't know whether they'll be able to... Because Halfway thought Zara was abroad, but she said she wasn't, didn't she, last week?
Well, she said she had come... When Stuart first went to hospital from the shootings a couple of weeks ago, she said she'd come from Alicante or something like that.
Yeah, and then she hadn't actually. She was lying, wasn't she?
Well, she was working in a club in the north.
So yeah, I'm guessing her story could make sense. So, yeah... Very frustrating that Linda interrupted this.
Well, Linda's basically, and even after Shirley had said, let's not go to the hospital, let's not interrupt any of the questioning. Shirley's first piece of sound, sage advice, and Linda decided to, because she saw that post-it note that said sorry on it.
Yeah.
It was so frustrating because Linda, basically, as you said, had messed it up.
She did. she took all the trust that all the hole that Stuart had dug himself in with Zara himself, like she just undid it. And so yeah, very annoying. So we then had the sort of dopey new lawyer who's been assigned to their case for free.
Mick said that the lawyer was decent and he was okay, and he's a bit green around the gills, but he will do. And so Mick had confidence in him.
Very fresh face, wasn't
fresh
he?
faced. He was
Right
brand
out of
new,
school.
straight out of the bar, and and so he went to visit the Carters, and Shirley instantly just jumps on his back straight away and starts saying, "How long have you been doing this for? You look like you should be getting your cereal, dinner made for you,
Yeah, I mean, it is a very complex case because there's a scene where he's like trying to go through it with them.
Well, I thought that as well. I did feel a bit sorry for him because
it's like, yeah, it doesn't really make any sense.
Yeah, he was getting really complicated, and it was when they were kind of explaining it out loud in that way. I even thought this is a really frustrating and kind of tangled story that's going on here, and it's
because they're going along the lines of Mick's being framed, but it's really hard to then convince someone of someone's being framed. But yeah, I did feel for him.
Yeah, it was a really tricky a really tricky case for him to have to present in front of a judge to get Mick some bail.
So Shirley's out to get her old mate Richie.
She is.
She goes sort everything.
She goes see Sharon. Sharon's a bit busy, but she promises that more on that later. She promises that she will give Richie a call. She does give Richie a call, and she says to Shirley, "That's fine. That's great. She's on board, but she's going to cost about £300 an hour." £300 an hour.
I know.
Goodness me. I mean, we know she's good. Even the solicitor that the police gave, even he said, like, you know what? I'm not even that upset. Yeah. Richie Scott is really good. So she's got this reputation. She's really excellent that she's going to get help him out in the case.
Richie.
I do love Richie.
Exciting.
I know. She was used so often, wasn't she? When
the Mitchells were around, yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's hardly any Mitchells left now to get in trouble. But yeah, she was always around for like Ben's case and Ronnie and Roxy and all sorts.
Yeah, she's nice when she pops in. But like I say, her hair seems to have gone a bit fringy. I don't remember it being quite so high.
No, she always has a different do every time she comes back.
She can afford it, £300 an hour.
She always has a new image. She always keeps the white hair, but she always has a new
icy image.
So she was pretty much convinced she could get Mick home that night, from what Linda was saying.
There's no evidence from the allotment, so they can't neither prove or disprove that he was there. However, they've got a witness answer phone message from Ted, because Ted owes them a favour.
Yes. Yeah, because they said, "Oh, let's just get a witness. Who do you think you could do round here?"
Ted.
Yeah,
Ted will do. He was in it twice actually, or he was mentioned once, and he was in it a second time when Hayley's mum.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
They were arguing on the doorstep.
Yeah, he didn't say anything. He just looked puzzled, confused, and scared, and then ran away.
Who are these women?
Good old Ted earning his paycheck.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, downstairs in the bar, while Richie's going through the case with Linda still doesn't admit to Richie about the gun, which surely is the. We've learnt this week that the gun is the pinnacle. This is going to be the final jigsaw piece that's going to be the nail in Stuart's coffin.
Yeah, there's still that bit of how he got from the bar to the kitchen with no blood trail, and then the gun was then behind the bar.
Were there two guns though? So is there a second gun somewhere in the Queen Vic?
Oh, what do you think? No, the police would have found it. They raided the thing for like 3 days.
Yeah, but what if Stuart was like really?
Well,
canny?
Dylan was tapping his bag.
He was.
I'm still suspicious about that tap of his sleeping pill.
Well, so Shirley, all Shirley keeps going on about is it's Dylan. Even Richie says we'll investigate Dylan a bit further too. And you know Richie,
Mick's the top of her list at the moment.
Well, she was at the time because she needed to get the bail.
Yeah.
So downstairs in the Queen Vic pub, to raise the £300 an hour, they're having a quiz night. And do you know what the subject matter of this quiz is?
Yes.
Sadly.
Need Johnny. I did think, why don't they phone Johnny? He's trained to be a lawyer. Couldn't he help his dad out?
Oh yeah, they could have got some
legal advice.
Legal advice from him.
Got a team of college students together, like how to get away from murder, and they could solve it.
Maybe they didn't want to worry him. Maybe he was busy. Maybe he was doing a quiz night down at the uni bar.
So yes, the lovely quiz night was back.
Without the sparkling jacket. Without the sparkling jacket. No one else can fit it but Johnny.
Mick Carter quiz.
The Mick Carter quiz.
You've got to think of the questions quick, Tina. So she's thought of all the questions.
She has. They've got teams. Can you remember some of the team names?
No, I can't remember any.
Do you want to even guess?
No.
There was Team Waistcoat. Team Hammers.
Hammers?
The West Ham.
Oh.
Yeah. There was another team, but I've forgotten it now. But yeah.
So Jay was there.
Jay was there.
He was next to Shrimpy. Keanu was there.
Patrick. Billy was there.
no cheating. You get fined if you cheat.
Well, you can get fined for cheating a £5, or if you want a clue to the answer, you pay £1. It's the most ridiculous quiz, but it's a good money
If I
spinning.
was Sharon, I would just write a check out and be like, "Can we just stop this?
Can we stop this now? I want to go back home. Come on, Keanu.
So yeah, and they told Keanu off for Googling.
Well, yes, for cheating. Now, how would you Google Mick Carter?
I know. Do you look up the Walford Gazette article about him being arrested or something?
Oh, maybe.
Mick Carter, 33, middle name Joseph. So I don't know how you cheat.
Learned to swim with Ian Bill. Almost drowned.
Unless there is a EastEnders Wikipedia page in real EastEnders world.
It's a bit meta though, isn't it?
Yeah,
looking from the outside in to the inside
yeah, I'm not
out.
sure how they Googled or cheated on the Mick Carter question.
Imagine if they asked a question, what crime did Mick Carter commit for Stuart to go to prison for?
Well, we all want to know that.
We all want to know. Talking of which, actually, Stuart does mention that to Zara as well.
He does. That's a bit of what makes Zara change. Because she says, oh, well, maybe he should do some time because my dad did some time for
him. Exactly.
But we still don't know what that crime was.
Still waiting.
So that's interesting. And obviously, looks like Mick is going to prison for a long time if they don't get this sorted out, because Richie comes back and says they had some secret evidence.
Yes, but not secret evidence.
Well, surprise. Yeah. Like a surprise witness, but surprise evidence of gunpowder residue on the shirt. Well, blood. The shirt that he apparently didn't wear.
Which was your prediction of last week?
I know my other prediction. I was complaining that they weren't taking this seriously.
They were not taking it seriously.
And they would have checked the gunpowder residue, and they have. Just a bit late.
I love that you said they weren't taking it seriously. Instead, so they this week raised £300 by doing a quiz about Mick Carter.
But at least they did it. Yes. I said last week they pretended they were treating this like a real crime show, and they've done it. Gunpowder residue.
Yeah, it's nice to have a bit of realism.
Just took a while for the results to come in. So yeah, that gets to the question: how this shirt that Mick wasn't wearing has all this stuff on it.
Well, it's got Stuart's blood
and the
gun residue, which again are both easily put onto the shirt as long as you gone to the forest and just kind of shot a gun next to it.
Whether the tests show at what time frame the blood and residue was on there, I'll question that for next week. That's my next thing for the police to investigate.
Pull your socks up.
How many weeks has the blood been on there? How many weeks or days has the gunpowder residue been on there? And are they both the same time frame?
Also, you're quite right, and on top of that, little trifle of evidence, this is the cream. Surely, when it's a case when someone's been shot and all of them are being questioned as witnesses, don't they normally do a swab of their hands to see if
the residue's on there as well?
So there we go. So shouldn't there be that evidence as well?
Maybe it's in the lab still.
Seems a bit inconsequential to me. But we shall see.
We will. I mean, speaking of prison, because obviously Mick is off to prison, we assume. There's been a few posts saying that they're going to show him in prison. So we're going on to our section of A Brief History in Walford, where we may be discussing something quite similar.
It's time for us to take a little step back and look into the past, as we have a brief history in Walford. And in this feature we talk about a subject from the show and the moments we remember. This can be a character, a building, or storyline that we fondly look back at the past to.
Like the bins.
Like the bins. Well, we did it 2 weeks ago and we talked about the Queen Vic.
We did.
And we'll be talking about something quite close to home again this time around. But before we go any further, as it has become accustomed to this part of the podcast, let me just quickly remind everyone that we have a merch store. And if you should visit shop.spreadshirt.co.uk/Eastenders Weekly podcast, you will find the Queen Vic bust collection, as we're now keenly calling it.
Collection of one item.
A collection of one image.
Yes.
But many items. A one-of-a-kind design drawn exclusively for our shop. And it can be on t-shirts, mugs, hats, aprons, pillows, hoodies, pins, mobile phone cases, you name it. If it's on spreadshirt.co.uk, you can have it. So if you enter shop.spreadshirt.co.uk/EastEnders Weekly podcast, you can search through our store. It would make a great, dare I say this, Ben, Christmas present.
Well, there's adverts on TV already, so.
In stores already are selling Christmas chocolate, Christmas pudding. So why don't you get ahead of the game before the rush kicks in and get yourself, get your EastEnders fan of a relative or a friend a Christmas present from our merch store, shop.spreadshirt.co.uk/Eastenders Weekly podcast. So anyway, back to a brief history. So this week we're throwing back to 1988, when Den Watts was locked up in a quite similar style to a Mick Carter storyline that's currently going on the square.
Coming up.
Now, some of you may remember there was a prison storyline which was based inside Dickens Hill, and the premise was that they were going to have Den Watts locked up for a certain period of time for a storyline that was parallel to what was happening on the square, and a lot of people called it, including the producer of the show, a soap within a soap. Now, what was the reason for why they needed to do this?
Well, the amazing couple of Angie and Den were no more. And Anita Dobson obviously had handed in her notice. And who else? Lofty, I think.
Lofty also handed in his
notice.
P45 as well.
Julia Smith was shaking. She was shook. And then Leslie Grantham decided he was going to leave as well. So 3 big ones in one go was a bit too much, I think, for her to handle. So she pleaded that he stayed on. I think she said the show wouldn't be able to handle losing Den and Angie at the same time.
Yeah, she said it was a double blow for the programme, and it would really severely affect.
And I'm assuming Lou Bill left just before then as well, didn't she?
I think Lou had gone just before then as well.
So a lot of the big ones were.
But 1988,
were off.
Yeah, 1988 was quite a big exodus for the original cast members. Really, there was a lot of them going. I think they felt like 3 years was long enough.
Yeah.
If you look at it, even to today's standards on soaps, 3 years tends to be the curve for character, doesn't it?
If you stay longer than 3 years, you tend to stay for like
you're handcuffed.
10.
You're handcuffed to the show.
But Anita, we went to that talk with her quite a few months ago, and she did mention it about how when she handed her notice in to Julia Smith, didn't she? And she said she was very upset because she had plans for Den and Angie to be on the show for as long as the show went, basically, didn't she?
Yeah, well, didn't she take both their resignations because they decided to do it at similar times, put them in an envelope and post it in a drawer, and she said, just think about it. Maybe for a
let
little
me
bit
know
longer.
in 6 months if you still feel the same, and they obviously did.
Well, 6 months later they did. I mean, Leslie Grantham was quoted as saying that he didn't want to end up as the next Ken Barlow.
I saw that.
So, he just...
Got a point.
It was fair enough. I think sometimes you can just stretch a character a bit too much.
Welcome.
So their solution was to ask Leslie to film chunk of episodes, a lot of episodes in a very short space of time. Yeah, they recorded 90 episodes worth of EastEnders in 5 weeks in this basically premise of that he's been put in prison for the arson of James Wilmot Brown's nightclub. Dagmar, that's right. Because he was basically getting revenge on the rape of Kathy Bill, and it looked as though James Wilmot Brown was going to get away with it.
I was also reading up that they decided to give Den that as the reason why he was in prison, because they wanted you to feel sympathetic for him because they're going to show all these 90 episodes worth of him in prison. So they said, we'll give him a certain type of crime which still makes him likeable. Yeah, which is why he had revenge on James Wilmot Brown.
That's exactly right, because they didn't want Den to be a criminal, because although he was a bit of a rogue and he kind of stepped just to the line of criminality, he never overstepped that mark, and that's what the audience liked. And so they didn't really want him to go, as you say, into prison for, had it been murder or had it been, I don't know,
something not very nice.
But
mugging an old woman, for example.
Well,
that's not very
nice
frowned
at all.
upon in prison. I hear
it certainly is.
In the 80s.
As you've quite nicely linked to. So when they were doing this, as I've already said, soap within a soap, these storylines that were intertwined with the main story that was happening on the square at the same time, they introduced, because there was this whole new place there's a whole new community as such in the prison, so they had to introduce this new batch of characters, and they had some, they had the whole spectrum of people in there, really. They had Queenie, who was a bit camp, but you didn't mess with him. He was quite a hard man.
He was really cool. It was amazing how forward EastEnders was back then. Like, the character of Queenie was like, he was like the hard, tough guy, wasn't he, of the prison?
He was, but he was also quite effeminate.
Yeah, and he was like into like making plays and things. Yeah, in the prison,
or singing
which
choir
is how
concerts.
Leslie Grantham got into acting. He headed the theatre of when he was spending time in prison. He headed the acting part in prison, and that's how he got into acting.
Well, there we go.
In real life.
Oh, that's how he got the bug.
Yeah.
So again,
that's how he saw his sentence out. He said he got into acting and did all the plays in the prison.
Oh, right. Oh, that's interesting to know. I mean, I was surprised. We'll go through some of the characters in a second, but I was surprised to learn that none of the characters, although there was one character that was in the soap before and then was in the
he was like introduced during the firm storyline, wasn't he? I think
he was like almost like a lackey. None of the characters from the prison transferred to the square afterwards. Which
one appeared for a funeral though.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. That's right. Which one was that?
I don't know.
I can't remember either. But it certainly did happen. Oh, and there was two characters that came from the original square as well. Because Nick Cotton was in there with Den as well. At the time, so Den had just been gone to prison, and then a few weeks had passed, and then Nick Cotton was put into Dickens Hill for drug dealing, and he pretty much made a really bad impression when he first got there. So to try to impress Den, he admitted the murder of Reg Cox. He said, "This is when you
finally."
Yes, 3 years,
3 or 4 years.
Yes, he finally admitted that he was the one who killed Reg Cox, because at this time Den had become number one of the prison,
top dog,
and Nick, trying to get him on side, told him this, thinking that this might help him with his future behind bars. But unfortunately, it didn't really do much to improve his image to the other prison officers and the prisoners. At the same time, because they all disliked him very much.
I mean, I just can't get my head around how they planned like 5 months worth of filming before they had filmed actual EastEnders. It must have been so difficult, because they even wrote in like people visiting him in prison, didn't they?
Yeah. And
they then had to write that into the same episode to make sure that character wasn't working in the laundrette or whatever. So yeah, it must have been a nightmare.
Well, they do openly say that it was a headache to get those, because it was only 5 months it happened. It was over, I think it was from October or November time to February the following year, 1989, and they said it was a headache because they had filmed this in advance. And don't forget, they also film in advance to that as well. So they had written these 5 months worth of storylines, 2-3 months prior to them actually being broadcast on, and then recorded them. And perhaps they went earlier still because they knew they had to get them done in such a intense amount of time.
Do you think it showed the BBC that actually maybe you could bump up to 3 episodes a week? Do you think that was a little thing to them? Think, well, they've filmed 5 months in 5 weeks. Why not?
Well, they didn't move up to maybe, but they didn't move up to 3 until 1992. So there's still a little while until that had happened. And when they did do that, a lot of people left the ship because they weren't happy that they thought it was going to lose a degree of quality. But maybe they had a spin-off planned all along. Maybe this was the El Dorado.
Porridge.
An El Dorado porridge El Dorado cross. But this was always planned to be maybe a spin-off in itself. So let's just quickly. So basically, Den was in there for, as we said, for setting the nightclub alight, and he was in there for arson, and he was basically doing it to cover any link that there would be with him and the firm. And the firm wanted him to admit to it because he had done it with one of the members of the firm as well, and they didn't want that member of the firm involved and put in prison. So Den had taken the blame. And when he was first introduced, he was beaten up because the firm believed that he was leaking information to the police, and they thought there was a mole in the prison. They later discovered that there was a mole, and that was Queenie, of all people.
I know. Quite shocked by this revelation.
But Den had become number one in prison, and he became almost a secondary character, because then there was all these other characters that got introduced in the background. So there was
they probably did that to cut down Leslie's filming schedule,
workload. Yeah, I suppose this was the way to compromise. There were a few characters, but the characters of note for me was Queenie, for instance, because he, as you said, this was quite a step forward with this large butch, quite angry character, would take no nonsense from anyone, but at the same time it had this very camp
I love
procedure.
How Nick went into the prison trying to be all like cocky and top dog, and he was like bottom of the barrel straight away because of it.
Yeah.
Which was quite funny. And all the prisoners respected Queenie.
Yes.
And like stuff like that. So yeah.
Well, because I think he kind of, it was a mutual respect. If you respected him, he'd respect you, and there was this kind of respect for one another. There was a really, as you alluded to just a minute ago, there was a character in there called Trevor Kello, and he was in there for mugging an elderly woman. And I
thought that was a really odd thing to be in prison for. I don't know. It seems a bit like random.
You don't know how he mugged him, though, I suppose.
Well, he was innocent.
when he was innocent. This was basically his undoing. He basically spent the whole time being bullied in prison mercilessly, and even Den kind of stood up for him, but didn't really help his cause too much.
It's because all the prisoners thought if you murder some gangster, that's fine, but mugging an old woman isn't accepted.
Well, if someone deserves it,
it's one of those crimes, isn't it, where frowned upon in the prison.
Well, fair enough, because I'm sure that old lady didn't come along whacking with the umbrella first. It was all down to him. But ultimately, his mental health and his state of affairs in prison caused him to commit suicide, and he hung himself. And then the following day, it was discovered that the solicitors had information that would have actually found that he wasn't guilty of the crime. Yeah. So that was quite a sad story as well to intertwine with it all.
It's nice that they actually bothered to create all these backgrounds, like make them proper characters,
no,
not
absolutely.
just like cheap two-dimensional characters.
Oh no, I completely agree, because they could have quite easily have just done Den Watts is in prison, here's Den Watts' story in prison, and then when he goes out of prison, and then there's the famous, because we must also say this is where the famous exit occurs, because when he's going to his trial, he gets the firm ambush the police lorry, and he's able to escape, but then the firm still haven't forgiven him, and so ultimately shoot him next to the canal, where there's that famous scene where there's the gun in the daffodils.
Did they shoot him? We all know they didn't. But yes, I was just reading up about that, how Julius Smith and Tony Holland took their names off of the credits on that episode.
Yes,
because they really disagreed with, because they filmed they filmed his body in the river and everything, and filmed it in a water tank, and that because they wanted to show definitely that Den was dead, and the BBC edited it out, so it's alluded that you don't know if he did die or not.
Yeah, it was the executive, I think it was the producer of drama at the time, and he didn't want Den written out. He wanted to keep him in so he could come back. So. And you also, then after that, apparently Leslie Grantham was asked year upon year upon year to come back to the soap, and would keep refusing. But eventually, I think the work dried out, because we all know that he did come back eventually to the soap. Another just of note is that everyone, or I certainly believe, that Mark Fowler was the first ever HIV positive character in EastEnders, and he was not.
No.
Vic Hampton was, who was a prisoner, who was a bit of a womanizer in prison. But so again, not a gay character. He was a straight guy who was slept around with a lot of women, and he contracted the infection, and became HIV positive. And from this, a lot of the prisoners wouldn't go near him. He was put in isolation. Everyone believed that they could catch it. No one would touch anything he had touched. No one would go into a room he'd gone into. So again, really progressive. And
because Mark wasn't, that storyline with Mark was quite a few years later, so way ahead of the times, weren't they? And obviously we're talking about this because Mick Carter's off to prison.
Well, this is exactly it. So,
and we've seen obviously some screens and not spoilers, but what the stories are next week, and it's showing him actually in prison, which they hardly ever do. Yes.
Well, it'd be interesting for one if they do it again at the same prison. They have actually shown a shot of the external shot of Dickens prison last year. So it's obviously something that they knew continuity-wise they could carry on doing. Yeah. But I wonder if they're going to do it, first of all, whether they're going to do it for as long term as they did with Leslie Grantham's story, while he's waiting for trial. So on the square,
obviously, Danny Dye is off for 3 months.
He's taking
for pantomime.
Yeah, well, it's not. He's doing a play. Yeah.
So yeah, whether they've done what they did with Den,
they've done
recorded a bulk load with Danny Dyer.
Maybe. I mean, it would make some sense. I suppose if he's only away, he's not going away permanently. Although, again, there's rumours going around that there might be there's a reality show talks.
Well, yeah, the BBC are not going to allow that. Well, no way.
Well,
no matter what Danny Dyer's contract is, they won't allow that. So if that is the case, maybe they've done a Dirty Den and recorded a bunch of stuff about
a few episodes. But I'd like them to do it as if, again, it's a soap within a soap. So they have these characters that are actually built and rounded characters. Because you could do a story a month, just a quick month story where you learn these new characters. I'd be happy if there were episodes on full day episodes of them just in prison, and they very rarely visit the square. It'd be interesting because it'd be a different direction to take things.
Let's just hope that Aidan's not been nicked, because I think that would be Mick's worst nightmare, from going from Stuart putting him in prison to sharing a cell with Aidan.
Well, that's the thing.
So interesting.
There are certainly rumours going around that there will be a past character returning for his time in prison.
I'm trying to think of who's in prison, but I guess Aiden. Well, we don't know what happened to Aiden. Nothing's been really said. So
No.
he could have been nicked.
Well, we had a little talk, didn't we, beforehand? And we were trying to. I was going through because I was adamant that I thought that Dean had, but then you quite rightly said he was on remand.
Yeah,
so
I thought he was as well. But I had to relook it up. But
No,
it all happened off screen. Off screen, it happened.
But no, you're absolutely right.
But yeah.
So this is basically linked to what everything goes full circle, I suppose, and perhaps there's a potential that this storyline is going to be very similar. Or the Mick storyline is going to be very similar to what they did with Den Watts.
Just not ending in a death. I highly doubt that.
Or will it? Well, it might not be Mick's death, but it might be someone's death. We shall see. The mystery continues, but it'll be a nice way of doing it if they show scenes of the prison at the same time you see the investigation happening at the same time. Yeah. And it also makes the relief, because when they say, oh, they've gone off to prison so they can have like 3 months off, so you don't see them on screen.
Yeah, when you don't really care that they're in prison because you don't see them suffering.
No,
well, not suffering, but not enjoying being in prison.
But
so
yeah, you don't get perspective of it, and so then when they do return or come back, it's almost like actually you're as relieved as their relatives, or as Linda would be.
The merch you need to make next week, it'll be free Mick Carter.
Oh my goodness! You've given ideas to people now.
Free Mick Carter t-shirts.
Free,
but yeah,
we should start a song as well, like they did with Free Nelson Mandela. We could make a Christmas number one.
Get Bex to write it. And,
that's a good idea.
Be well away.
I'll play the maracas, and you can just be in the background spinning around. Lovely. So there we go. That was a brief history of Walford when Dirty Den went to prison, and if you hold a mirror up to the screen, perhaps this is something that's going to be similar to what's happening to Mick very soon. So there we go. That was a brief history of Walford.
Right, so we are back.
We are back
from our history lesson.
Very interesting little chat.
So next up on the agenda is a nice little affair. Sharon Gate 2.
What you're saying is this hasn't been happening for the last 2 weeks.
Well, it's ongoing.
This isn't new. This is something that's been happening for ages. Sheanu.
High energy levels from Sharon this week.
Yeah, well, she calls Sharon.
Full of beans.
Here he is. She calls Keanu and wants to get the deed done. And
he's just had a shower.
He's already a cold shower. So presumably they'd met previously, or he's just got home from seeing her once already. I mean, she is pretty clingy, isn't she?
All those months where Phil didn't bother.
I know.
Been building up. So he's naked. Keep that in mind, he says to her while she's waiting for him.
Yeah. She says lots of things during this conversation.
She's tied herself up. Yeah. Got handcuffs. All sorts of things.
He's like, you stay there. You might as well wait there. I won't be long. But he is a long time because he's constantly getting given errands and people are talking to him.
Things
and
like
keeping
this
him held
always
up.
happen to Keanu, don't they? Like, it happens quite a lot of these sort of silly things, like his long wait, and like a lot of the times this happens. Like when he got some money and he had to keep giving the money away as he earned it. So yeah, he kept getting sort of interrupted on his errands.
Yes. Well, and also we thought that Karen had heard, but Karen hadn't heard. She was on the phone.
I don't know how she didn't hear, because she was like right next to
well, at first,
behind like a curtain.
Well, she was behind the curtain because she was having a cigarette. But at first, that kind of baffled me too. It's like, why was she behind the curtain? Was she playing like hide and seek with?
She was smoking out of a window, I think, while on the phone.
Oh no, I knew that. Yeah. I worked out eventually, but I wondered why she. At first, I thought, well, why is she behind the curtain? But yeah, she asks Keanu to do a few errands around the house, get some electricity for the lecky meter, buy some bits and bobs, and so this basically holds Keanu up. Something interesting is that we learnt this week that Honey thinks she's the face of the Minute Mart.
Yeah, I know. I saw. Okay, Honey. I think she needs her dentist mate back now. She's going back into old Honey too quickly.
She needs something to do with herself, doesn't she?
Yeah, she's just there like putting hand cream on for ages.
She's putting sanitizer on, and she's saying that she doesn't, because the whole theme, if there was a theme for this week, is basically that all the children of Walford are getting down on this bug.
Louise, she's sick as well.
Oh, is she sick as well?
Yeah, because she interrupts them. Because he finally gets to Sharon's house, and she comes down the stairs like, wow, you made me wait. I'm going to have to punish you for that.
Oh, yes, I forgot about that.
And then they're about to go upstairs, and then Louise comes home, says she's sick, and runs upstairs. Yeah. So that interrupts them again.
Martin gets sick.
Yes.
It's a running theme, isn't it? They're everyone's getting sick. They're basically pretty much the whole Slater house is full of people being sick.
And they're meeting up again later in the week, that's when Shirley wants Richie's number. So we get a little glimpse into their sex life in the living room that time. They're doing one room each day, I think.
Oh, right.
They've done the kitchen.
Yeah.
They've gone upstairs, done all the bedrooms up there. Now they're in
Done all the bedrooms.
the lounge, hallway, on the stairs.
What, even Dennis's room?
Yeah, hallway.
You reckon?
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
Porch.
Well,
in the street,
yeah.
Well,
on the canal, on the canal.
So she's way away.
She's...
So they interrupt. They open the door. Keanu has some red marks all over him, scratches from her nails.
Yes, all down his chest. She's put her false eyelashes in again, so she's got eyelashes like camel. And and she's basically. Shall we reenact the
we'll give it a go.
Conversation? So
I might need a few cues.
Who would you like to be, Sharon or Keanu?
Sharon, of course.
Okay, I'll be Keanu then. So.
So it starts off with Shirley knocking at the door.
The lounge door opens. You see the scratches down Keanu's chest. Sharon's blinking.
She tells him not to go anywhere. You stay right where you are.
Then Keanu says, I can't go on again. I've got a pair of raisins down there.
Well, running's meant to raise your stamina, isn't it?
And scene. I mean, that was...
They've dried up like 2 raisins. We'll see. And she says, well, we'll see. She's going again.
I mean, Keanu, I think the point of this is that Keanu, who's meant to be the young buck, can't keep up with Sharon's vigorous, voluptuous, overexcitable sex life.
In the past, all of Sharon's men through her life have all said how wild she is in the bedroom. Grant said it, Phil has said it, and Dennis said it.
There you go.
So she's still got it. She's still going.
She's got this rep and she's got to keep it.
Keanu can't keep up. He doesn't need to go to the gym anymore, does he?
No, he's
getting all his cardio in.
Hope he's keeping his sugar levels up. I know I jokingly said Luke safe, but I think he should just drink direct sugar water.
He's protein bar in the in-between.
He does. He needs a nice big one of those Snicker proteins.
So yeah, that was their storyline of their summer love. Continues.
I mean, like I said, it's not new.
I use the word storyline loosely because they're just,
they're just bubbling in the
free
background.
and easy.
Yeah, they're just doing what they want to do. We're just being reminded that they're happening for when Phil comes back. It's going to be a
shock to the system when Phil comes back. She's going to have to rein herself in.
Yeah, well, when Phil comes back, there's going to be the big story, isn't there? So this is basically building. It's nice for them to build up with lots of sexual content.
Yes.
There should be warnings in future, though, when we see Keanu in his pants.
And it's a running theme, isn't it?
A rubbing theme?
A running theme.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
How many more excuses can they find for him to not wear clothes? Because next week he's topless in the streets.
Yeah, but he is. I want to know
why.
Helping out Well, isn't this going on with the storyline where Sharon's been paying people to give Keanu jobs?
Possibly.
I mean, he hasn't worked this week, has he? Although he did say he had some time before his interview.
Yes.
So presumably
his phone interview. But it's a merit to the writing team that they keep finding all these different reasons and wonderful ways for him to be naked.
Yeah.
So we continue to see how this.
And also, everyone keeps asking Sharon because every time someone sees Sharon, she's like, "You're still in your pajamas.
Why are you not dressed?
Why are you not dressed?"
Had a bottle of wine.
Yeah. I got up late this morning. Dennis made his own sandwiches for school.
So next up, we've got the Carmel storyline.
It's something a bit more serious.
Yes, which seems to be alluding to her exit storyline. This is obviously the beginning of her exit. It's not long now. It's the beginning of autumn, I think, where she's exiting. So it's more focusing on Kush's grief at the beginning of the week. He's obviously getting a bit fed up of Sophie hanging around all the time. Which
fair enough.
I know. I mean, in a way, when I've been watching this, I'm trying to think of who I agree with or what I think. But I do find myself agreeing with Kush slightly because Carmel's just invited this mopey woman in who's, I don't know if it's just the actress or for the character, but she's quite annoying. I mean, not annoying because obviously I know that she's gone through all this, but she's a bit like of a drip.
Yeah, she's feeling a bit sorry for herself.
Yeah, and it is Kush's flat. Yeah, and Carmel moved herself into his flat after she lost Masood's house, and she's just invited this woman to live there, who's
because Kush hasn't really given consent to this,
and she is the mother of the person who killed his brother. Yes. So I do kind of sympathise with Kush actually. This week, I think actually Carmel is being she's on one track, isn't she? And she's not focusing on actually Kush may be actually upset here.
Well, she does say this as well. She says that she's been focusing on outside activities, trying to get herself to not think about Shaquille's knife crime, to try to do some good. And she's kind of been neglecting Kush unintentionally because of it. So Kush feels, quite openly says he feels quite isolated, and he feels like he's alone in this whole situation. And Carmel didn't realise that she had kind of done this to him. So yes, you're absolutely right. I think Kush was within every right to be. I think he was angry at her for the wrong reasons. I think he wasn't. I don't think he was so much angry at her.
He was trying to find someone to blame. He obviously can't go up to Bruno and shout at him. So the next best thing is obviously Bruno's mum. I mean, at least Sophie admitted that Bruno wasn't sorry.
Yes, which was
so
great.
I am glad that was out of the way quickly. There wasn't some horrible storyline of his mum keeping that to herself. So that was nice. And that's obviously sort of resolved the Sophie situation. I mean, she does keep hanging around the rest of the week, but...
Well, she's only there at the beginning of the week.
Yeah.
And Kush and Sophie do actually end up having the heart-to-heart.
Yeah, they sort of see a mutual respect for each other, I guess, in the end.
Yeah.
After he scared her and things. And then, obviously, towards the end of the week, we have Carmel, who's been doing a bit of press, bit of interviews.
She has.
Well, she's invited onto the podcast. We're waiting for a reply.
On our podcast, yeah, she has been. Nothing's come to that just yet, but she will do radio interviews.
Yet,
no, she's not. But
she's been burned by the radio interviews.
She's
a bit not sure.
I mean, Sophie. Just quickly go back to Sophie. Sophie had that heart-to-heart with Kush, and she does. She does apologise and says that she can't stop loving Bruno, but she understands that what he's done is wrong. And I think that did put Kush's mind at rest. And after that, Sophie did go, because luckily for Sophie, Carmel still has some links with the housing department of the council.
From her job.
From her old job. So she was able to move Sophie on from where she's getting kind of constantly torrents of abuse and hate from people.
So that's good. I mean, before we move on to her interview in the second half of the story, I just want to make one little quick mention of Max sticking his nose in.
Yeah.
You're right, Carmel.
But then
luckily they just all ignored him.
No response, exactly. So and then he keeps trying back in again.
When she went to the hospital to see Shaquille's body, he walked past her. I was like, "You're right, Carmel." She just ignored him then. But go away, Max.
No, I agree.
That's all I have to say.
I agree.
Go away, Max. Just leave Carmel alone.
I mean, Max has got his own problems to deal with at the moment. He can't
Kush should have punched him because he was drunk, so he should have just punched him over the wall.
I think Kush was so drunk he didn't really.
No, he should have. It'd be funny.
Kush did chat up Hayley in the pub as well, didn't he? Again, he was.
And she sort of reminded him, like, "Oh, what is your girlfriend?
Yeah, what's your girlfriend doing at the moment?"
I don't like that about Kush. But I mean, I think that's a bit. It's kind of out of character. I don't know. Is it out of character because he did have that thing with Stacey?
Well, Kush.
Yeah, I don't know. It just seems a bit.
Kush. I don't know. It's weird with Kush because it's not like you said, that thing with Stacey.
Yeah, but it's not really the same, is it? Because she was single.
But then also Kush had a lot of. Kush isn't like Kush doesn't get a lot of attention from his mother, and that she ignores him or that she's particularly hard on him. She's quite fair on him. She lets him run his own life. So there's something in Kush. Maybe it's from his father. Maybe it's something from his father's side. He's got this kind of misogynistic side where he feels like he can just kind of go up to a woman and sleep with them if he wants to, and it kind of comes out when he's been drinking, because he's obviously made that mistake once now and it hasn't come out. Whether it is going to come, maybe it's going to be a bit like when Mick and Whitney kissed. That didn't come out for like a year, did it? Until that was
all
released
all at once.
Yeah, so maybe so if that does come out, he's not helping his cause because he's tried it again with Hayley. But lucky for us, Hayley at that moment of the week had her sensible head on, and also she was too busy devouring 6 packs of pork scratch hands, so she was quite happy.
And we also have where Carmel's she's done a newspaper interview, so she's been asked to do a live radio interview, which she does, where she's talking about stabbing victims and her son, but the guy sort of turns it quite horrible, I don't know where he got his facts from. He starts saying that he was involved in gangs or involved with stealing and these sort of things. Which
he says that he accuses Carmel of failing Shaquille. It's like when he basically just downright says, "So when did you fail Shaquille?" And it's like, that's a really nasty thing to say to someone who's genuinely trying to. Because she even says in the radio interview, she's not just supporting the victim, she's supporting the boys who get in these gangs and like Bruno.
Yeah.
Although you can't really trust anyone who works for a radio station called Talk East. And then if you look on their equipment, they've got a groovy 60s kind of logo.
But I thought that was quite horrible of that interviewer. I don't know, quite unnecessary to say all those things to her.
I did like the fact that they said that's the press. That's what all the press do, and it's like, well, no, that's a bit mean.
But obviously, this young man was listening because this young man comes up to her in the cafe.
Sam the
is
man.
He's got a name.
Sam, yeah.
Official. So yeah, she thinks he's press, so she sort of says no to him. But Denise obviously stays and talks to him, and it turns out that he's part of like a touring charity which
go to schools.
Yeah, go to schools, discuss knife crime, and obviously try and stop it in its tracks.
Because Sam had found himself in a similar situation to Bruno.
Yes.
Where he had a knife in his hand and he was going to do something, but luckily he was stopped before anything should carry out. And it's a touring group. I forget what they call themselves now.
Yeah, I can't remember. It was like double. I can't remember what it's called.
I don't want to get it wrong. I don't want to make silly names. Yeah.
But yeah. So I don't know if it's a real charity or not. I have to look it up.
Yeah, we should. Yeah.
Because obviously last week I said maybe her and Sophie will have a happy ending and they'll tour the country and discuss knife crime things. And this seems like it's going to be that exit storyline for Carmel for a bit.
I mean, she jumped on board straight away. It's like even Denise and Kush said, "Oh well, let's think about it. Let's have it." And Carmel was like, "No, I definitely want to do this." And she started beaming again. She started smiling, and she knew that this was really ultimately this is what she wanted to do from the very beginning when she started trying to get that knife box, that knife safety box in the community centre to this point now. This is all she wanted to do. She wanted to raise awareness under the banner of Shaquille, almost so something good has come of something so nasty and horrible.
But it does raise those questions if this is her exit storyline, and that's how she exits. That they say, "Oh, she's touring." Like, how long can she be missing for? Like, it makes it a bit difficult writing wise. Like, say Kush gets married or something, like an accident happens to Denise or there's a funeral, they have to write in why Carmel isn't there or not showing up. Or, like, how long can she be on tour for before it gets a bit like, well, why is Carmel not here?
Well, they can't make an excuse of like, oh, she was busy doing a school today. Yeah, you know, that's like for a wedding.
Or she's stuck on the M25. Like, I don't know.
The circular.
It raises a few difficult things writing wise if this is how she leaves. Because like, how long can she, like, after a year and a half, would she have not come back home? Like,
I don't know. I suppose it's an annual thing, isn't it?
Or they'll do it off screen. They'll say, "Oh, Carmel's visiting," but you don't see her. It's difficult to say why. She'd have to have a home, like a base.
Well, she could stay at B&Bs and stuff like
guess.
That.
I just think it does cause a few. Like, it's hard enough, like, making up reasons why Little Mo doesn't appear and she's not been on screen for ages. So it just makes more of that, and like,
I think it's a reasonable.
Carmel's busy or Carmel's doing this.
But I think it's a reasonable way of doing it because, as I say, if you're touring, I suppose the only thing you could argue is that if she wasn't touring, surely she would come back like half term or
summer holidays. Yeah, that's what I mean. It's a bit tricky.
Yeah,
but we'll see what happens.
Because we've got Kush and Denise's wedding, so we've got that to come.
Wow.
They've been engaged for God knows how long. This isn't like a soap at all. Normally, when someone gets engaged, they're either
it's been forgotten, hasn't it?
Forgotten, or they're getting married like really quickly. And the whole storyline up until that point is them arranging their wedding. Yeah. We shall see.
Hopefully, Bonnie Langford will just come back for maybe guest appearances. A bit like how Pam does a few every now and then.
I like Pam. That. Bring back Pam.
Or Denise's daughter. She like turns up for a weekend. So maybe it'll be like that.
Her oldest daughter hasn't come back for ages though. No, and she was the one I used to love because she used to crack me up with the stuff she used to come out with. Yeah. So we've said Martin's feeling a bit sick. So perhaps we should get some of our 5 a day.
Family history.
Right, it's my turn this week, and we're playing another round of Martin Fowler's 5 a day. Everyone's favourite fruit and veg based game.
That's not official.
Fruit and veg based game.
Oh, okay.
I think it's everyone's favourite fruit and veg based game. So I will ask you a question. You must list 5 answers that relate to that question. You must wait after every answer to discover if you are right or wrong, and you only have 30 seconds to give me all 5 answers. Now, something's a bit different this week. Because I thought you know how I like to mix things up a little bit, like Pete Beale's box of fruit likes to mix things up a bit for £1. Before I give you the question, I want you to tell me: would you like to answer questions about the Fowlers or the Beales? There's no right or wrong answer. One might be slightly trickier than the other, but I'm obviously not going to tell you.
They're like the same family. The Beales.
Okay. Cool. Okay. We'll keep the Fowler questions to another day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Since EastEnders began, there have been many births on the square, helping a family's legacy and build a rich history of affairs, broken marriages and baby napping. With this in mind, can you name 5 children who have been born where at least one of the parents is a Bill?
Ooh.
The child does not have to have the surname Bill, necessarily.
No,
So-
it just needs to be from a Bill.
But it needs either the father or the mother, or both, it can happen, needs to be a Bill by name, so by marriage or by birth themselves. Okay? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Right.
Only 30 seconds as well.
30 seconds. But we've already gone through this. All I say is yes or no, and we'll go through the answers in more detail afterwards. So here we go. 5 Bill babies. Here we go. Starting
I'm
from
already confused with Bills and Fowlers. Okay.
now.
Okay, Vicky Fowler. She's from a Bill.
No,
right?
that's no, that's a Fowler, so that doesn't count.
Lou. Oh, the Bills and Lou's, they're all the same.
No, they're
It
not.
does so Martin. Is that a Fowler?
That's a Fowler,
For
yes.
God's sake.
You should have gone with Fowler, shouldn't you?
Okay, well, Pauline.
No, since the show began.
Oh my god. I don't know. The Fowlers and Bills are
They're not the same, they're different families.
Ian,
Yes, Ian, yes. So
Peter, Lucy, Cindy.
Yes. Time's
Stephen.
up. Time's up. You got there in the end. Lucy, Peter, Cindy is correct. Stephen was also correct. You could have also had... Well, let me go through them. So Stephen Bill was the first one, 26th of December 1989, whose the father was Simon Wicks and Cindy Bill. So Cindy was married to Ian, but had him out of marriage.
Right.
Then Lucy Bill was Ian Bill and Cindy Bill.
Yeah.
Peter Bill, Ian Bill, Cindy Bill. Cindy Williams, who later became a Bill, was Nick Holland and Cindy Bill. Then there was Bobby Bill on the 22nd of July 2003, who was between Ian Bill and Laura Bill. There was Louis Bill on the 17th of September 2015,
Lauren.
which was Peter Bill and Lauren Branning. And then on the 29th of December 2017, there was Abby Branning, who was Stephen Bill and Abby Branning.
Oh, Baby Abby.
Baby Abby
Tia.
trademark, that's right.
See, the Fowlers and the Bills are like the same family. It's too intertwined to
I mean, I'm
Choose.
gonna release it now anyway. So you could have, if you'd gone for the Fowlers, it would have been
which
the
I
same.
did.
Which, well, no, you went for the Bills.
Well, my answers were.
Your answers were the Fowlers. So if you stuck with the Fowlers and said the Fowlers to begin with,
I said Vicky, Martin, Peter, Pauline. But obviously, Pauline
Peter and Pauline
yeah, I
don't
know,
count because they were
yeah.
off screen.
I
So
did listen to the
Martin
rules.
was correct because that's Arthur and Pauline. Vicky was correct because that was Den Watts and Michelle Fowler.
Mhm.
Then there's Rebecca Fowler, which was Martin Fowler and Sonia Jackson. Louise Mitchell, which was Phil Mitchell and Lisa Fowler. She was a Fowler at the time of having Louise.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's Hope Fowler, who was Martin Fowler and Stacey Fowler. So the question would have been either Bill or Fowler, depending on what you chose at the beginning. And you missed. Well, I think the whole game confused you,
I
didn't
know.
it? But there
The
you
Bills
go.
and Fowlers are too confusing.
We'll put up the answers if you're interested with the dates of their birth on Twitter or on something on Instagram, just so you have the full answers to play with at home. But there we go. That was Martin Fowler's 5 a day. That was a bit tricky for you, wasn't it? That was
Could have gone better.
that was painful.
I was so confused.
People have to
They
listen
are
to that.
confusing family. To be
Fowlers,
fair.
Fowlers and the Bills. How did you
It's
guys
be-
do?
It's because I'm watching classic EastEnders and new EastEnders,
I
so
know.
I just don't know what era I'm in.
And you're watching
anymore.
YouTube videos of EastEnders.
Yeah, I know.
You're-
All the characters from classic, I'm watching all their like exits. So
You know-
I'm all over the place.
You know that meme when they show the woman like kind of like thinking, and you see all those mathematical equations. I swear,
That's
I'm
me.
gonna get a video of you kind of looking around a room and just have like loads of scenes from
Photos of
EastEnders.
Pauline and Arthur and
Pat.
Ian and Pat. Ah, yeah, I've been watching lots of clips on YouTube.
Really have. You keep coming into me and saying,
Pat's first episode. I
Right.
suggest people watch that.
"Oh, I
It's
watched that with
amazing.
you." Yeah, no, it is good.
She
very
gets
good.
drunk with Angie, and it's hilarious. It's really good. Anyway, so we've got a returning character this week.
One that everyone wanted to see.
Bit divided.
I would say it divided means it's 50-50. I would say it's more 95-5.
It's an odd one. Ruby Allen is back. We did a section on her last episode, so you're all caught up on who she is.
We did. If you want to listen to it, it's still on there.
It is. It'll be there forever. So yeah, she sent a text to Stacey saying, "It's me. Come meet me at E20 tonight." Unknown. Obviously, you didn't have this number saved,
No.
and it turns out to be Ruby Allen.
It
Very
was Ruby
successful.
Allen. Because Stacey does go to E20.
She does.
And she goes into the bar and she's like, oh, no one's here. Oh, it's all been a bit of a con. Starts to walk out and then out comes Ruby and she goes, hello, stranger. I mean, a lot of people...
She's all glammed up.
A lot of people have quite genuinely and I can see have questioned, how did Ruby get Stacey's number?
I know.
I mean, Stacey's been in prison, been... quarantine.
She lost her phone because Jane tried to phone her.
Lost her phone, to Jane, and when Jane messaged her, she ignored. Ignored it.
And the Taylor boys stole the phone. Max has taken her phone, deleted things off of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, she said she lost her contacts. I mean, and people have replied to people saying, well, they've kept in touch online. But throughout the week, Ruby's like, who are you married to? You have kids? You've been arrested? You're in a psych ward? Like, she doesn't know anything. Not one thing.
You're married to Martin? I thought
Martin's not with Sonia, yeah. So that can't be the case. So it's a bit odd anyway.
No, it's a bit up in the
air.
It's
very loose.
You have to almost suspend belief on this one occasion.
One occasion.
Yes.
But, so her best friend's back.
Her BFF.
She seems like a bit of... I don't know, she's not very nice, Ruby. She doesn't come across that well, I don't think.
She's kind of gone from being this kind of a bit feeling sorry for herself to being a very confident, what is she? She's a party organiser.
Yeah, an events organiser. She's in nice posh clothes and her hair's all done.
It takes a lot
white
to make
teeth.
her look that
cheap. And she was like, it takes a lot of work to look this good. And it's like, shut up, Ruby.
Her arrogance is really
Yeah, she's really
in.
arrogant and not that likeable.
No.
She obviously keeps talking about the past, like we said, so she goes... I mean, all week she just goes for drinks. I suppose what they're trying to show is how these two friends who are similar age, quite similar to each other, have both gone off on different paths, haven't they? Where Stacey's like a mum, ex-psych ward. She's a mum of 3, can't go out drinking, can't do this. And Ruby's there, drinking during the day, getting a cocktail, meeting up with these boys, going out for a nightclub, not a care in the world. And Stacey's like, oh no, I can't go out. I've got to be up at 5 a.m. the next day.
Yeah.
But I thought that was a bit horrible of Ruby as well. Like inviting Stacey out and then being like, oh, I'm going to go to this club with these guys. Do you want to come?
Well, that was pretty much Ruby's story, wasn't it? Every episode, she was in a different location drinking with Stacey.
True millennial. So yeah, not the best start. I mean, I had low hopes last week before her return. They're still low. She keeps flirting with all the men, like the man behind the bar.
Yes.
And then there was someone in the Vic she looked at, and then there was another man she looks at E20 again for the next night.
Her flirting's a bit low, isn't it?
I know,
it's
she gobbles like a straw or something.
Well, no, she had a champagne glass, and instead, like most people, just put both lips, one on the top, one on the bottom of the glass, and sip from it. She kind of stuck her tongue out, as like she was tasting it before it touched her lips. It was really bizarre.
Yeah, she had moving her hair off her face.
And she flipped her phone cover. She flipped her phone cover closed.
Yeah, she's all flirty.
Yeah. So Ruby's basically big entrance was that she gets drunk a lot. She's still young, and in her mind, she's young and she's carefree. She doesn't have a problem in the world.
Yeah. And also, I had an issue with her arranging all these men to take her on a taxi. So Stacey's like, well, you go then. She's like, okay, bye. And she's like, oh, what about the drinks? And she was like, oh, can you do it and I'll owe you?
Yeah, I'll pay you back later.
It's like, I haven't seen you in 12 years, Ruby. Yeah. When are you going to pay me back?
I mean, I did feel genuinely sorry for Stacey because she obviously was looking forward to this night out. She
bought a dress, expensive.
Martin bought
could barely afford that.
Absolutely. And she basically stood her up for 3 men.
And Ruby Allen inherited like what's believed to be multiple of millions of pounds. So she could have just been like, oh, I've paid it all for you, Stace. Have a nice, safe trip home.
I mean, it would have been a bit rude, though, if Ruby had just gone like into her bag to throw £20 at Stacey.
Yeah, she could have paid for it before she decided to
I know, she wasn't in that
taxi.
much of a rush, was she? No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
The taxi could have waited for her. I mean, the meter was on. Or it could have been an Uber, so then it wouldn't have been a problem at all. But if it's a black cab, okay, she may have to pay an extra 50p because the meter was on.
I didn't like how she was all cocky about how beautiful she was and how good her body was.
She was really up her own bum.
I didn't like how confident and cocky she was with all the men around her all the time. Didn't like how cocky and confident she was about not paying for the drinks. So, not happy.
Although I did enjoy the fact that they went to a Gareth Gates concert.
They did.
It was
she
nice
was drunk there as well, apparently.
Apparently.
Drunkest I've ever been.
I mean, I didn't like that because, like, having watched clips last week when we were doing, like, bits and pieces about Ruby Allen, and they showed a scene when Ruby was, like, going off to school, and it was, like, the first time she'd, like, had a drink. So I don't really know how that would have worked on the timeline very well.
It's weird.
Anyway, the poll of the week was about Ruby Allen as well. So yeah, we because we knew the return of Ruby Allen was imminent, we asked, with her return, where will she stay? She needs a place to stay in Walford, but where will she go? And the options were Jay and Billy's share house. Nice, isn't it?
Wow, she's all posh.
Yeah, they've just cleaned it, hasn't she?
Would she say to Jay, "Oh, do you mind getting the rent for me this month? I'll owe you."
Yeah. Although Jay did do that when others rented from him.
That's true.
And Honey had cleaned the house up, so it would be nice. Vincent and Kim's old home, we know that's up for sale. Kim had mentioned it only this week.
It's big and posh, so that's good.
Big and posh. Liz and Pam's funeral flat, again, we know it's empty now because they wanted to raise the rent. Or one more at the Slaters.
Oh, God.
Yeah, because, there's always room for
Why
one
not?
more. So can you imagine what the most popular response was?
I would go with Vincent's because it's like the biggest, poshest one.
Yes, but that's the most reasonable. And
Yeah.
as we've already said today, you have to suspend belief. And on our Twitter polls, sometimes you have to suspend belief too.
Dear.
Because everyone thinks that she's going to spend a few nights at the Slaters.
Oh, does she?
Yeah. So, but that's what everyone thinks.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
62% said one more at the Slaters.
God, like a lot then.
It was pretty popular. 24% said Vincent and Kim's old home. 9% said Jay and Billy's share house. And only 6% said the flat above the funeral. I thought, genuinely, to me, that seems the most reasonable. Because it's not too big.
She's ex-gangster. She could buy the thing off of Les and Pam, and she could, do her murders, put them in a thing downstairs,
in the ground,
and get rid of them.
Yeah, done. Easy peasy. So yeah, thank you for voting. We'll give you details of how you can vote and more details after we've looked at some of the comments that people have said about Ruby's big return.
I also want to question as well. Ruby said she's here. She was driving past on business, but now she's going to just stay.
Yeah, but and where does she stay?
Why is she weird? Does she actually have this business, or she's putting up a front?
Oh, do you think this is all a big?
That's why she couldn't pay for the drinks.
Good
maybe
point. Maybe.
I don't know. Anyway, on Facebook, I put on, hey, what does everyone think of Ruby's return so far? So Darren says, oh no, never mind. Darren doesn't say anything.
Okay, good. Probably best we didn't hear from Darren.
Lynn says, we haven't seen much of her at the moment, so I think her story will come into its own when the Stuart storyline's finished. God, I hope that's soon. So she's taking a little dig at Stuart there.
Right.
In a Ruby comment.
Yeah, I think that's rude to do that. Stick to the subject matter.
John says, I didn't even like her the first time. Could have picked someone better to return.
Oh dear.
Dean says, pointless. Of all the people they could have brought back, she was so annoying the first go. And another rape story. I wish they would explain whatever happened to Kat finding her son. That's like it never even happened.
Was that the spin-off?
Yeah. Not been mentioned.
Not much, has it?
Sue says, hope her story is not as boring as her return. That was poor, even by John York's standards.
Oh dear, so even John York's getting a bit of a battering over this.
Keith says, I wish the producers would get this simple fact. We all love EastEnders, but these storylines are totally bleep.
Oh, I'm presuming that they didn't say
bleeped
yes
it myself.
For the best.
Walter says she hasn't aged very well, which I could disagree.
I disagree. I think she's found the
she's
fountain.
She's all cocky.
Yeah, she's cocky, but also, to be fair to her, she's got the fountain of youth on her. Unless it does take a lot of work to look that good by the makeup department.
So, I mean, all quite negative.
I know. I feel bad because Ruby wasn't that bad of a character. It's just that of the pool of characters they could have returned.
Yeah, it's just not needed. That's the main problem.
It seems a bit dumb.
But
we'll see. And we've got the big story. I'm presuming next week will be because she went away with all those lads. Lads.
Apparently it hasn't started yet, I read. So maybe it starts next week.
I'm presuming, next week will be the story.
Assuming.
Oh, well. Well, as always, we love listening to your comments. And we're on Facebook, which is where we've been getting our comments this week. So if you see us pop up, then do give us your point of view. We love to listen to them. And if you might get read out on the show. But you can also find us on Twitter, which is at Eastenders Week. You can find us on Instagram, which is at Eastenders Weekly Podcast. We live tweet on every episode of EastEnders as it's broadcast in the UK. So that's Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. And you can also email us eastendersweekly@gmail.com. Any suggestions for the show? Any games that you'd like us to play? If you've got any ideas for the games,
any history of Walford,
any history of Walford, you'd like
we're
us
an
to do.
encyclopedia.
Or if you have any opinions, views, just throw them our way. We always try to reply. And as I say, all the comments that we get, we try to read as many out as we can on the show. So I think that wraps up the week.
Yeah, it does. And oh, sorry, just got a text.
You meant to turn the phone off when you.
Sorry, that's an unknown number. You plus me at Fowler's bench.